I stared at the screen, my heart racing. The bank account read $600 million. My father-in-law's wealth, now passed down, was in my husband's hands. This is it, I thought. He doesn't need me anymore. John, my husband of 4 years, had always been charming but distant. His casual demeanor hid something darker, and I ignored the warning signs. "Mary, I want a divorce," he said one evening, his voice as cold as the winter air outside. "I've got plans now, big plans," he added, flashing a smug grin. The words hung in the air, heavier than any argument we'd ever had. "Plans?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My stomach twisted and I clenched my fists under the table. "What kind of plans?" "That's none of your concern," he replied, leaning back and crossing his arms. "Let's just say it involves living the life I deserve. Don't worry, I'll be generous in the settlement." The audacity of his words left me speechless. For years I had been the supportive wife, the one who kept things running while he dreamed of grandeur. Now, with his father's wealth in his grasp, he had no use for me. "Fine," I said finally, masking my hurt with a calm tone. "If this is what you want, let's get it over with." I signed the papers he slid across the table, my hand steady despite the storm raging inside me. As I handed them back, he smirked, confident he had won. "I'll have your things sent over," he said, standing up and heading for the door. "Take care, Mary." Watching him leave, I felt a strange sense of relief. He thought he'd won, but he had no idea what was coming. "He'll regret this," I whispered, a spark of determination igniting within me. A few days later, I was settling into my new apartment when my phone rang. It was John. "Mary, what did you do?" he demanded, his tone frantic. "What are you talking about?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "The bank said the $600 million can't be withdrawn. They said it's collateral. What's going on?" I couldn't help but chuckle softly. "Oh, John, didn't your father ever tell you about his plans?" "Just tell me what's happening," he snapped, his frustration evident. "That money isn't just sitting there for you to spend. It's tied up in debts and obligations. Your father used it as collateral for his business ventures. He trusted me to handle everything if anything happened to him. It's not yours, John. It never was." "You're lying," he said, but his voice wavered. The reality was sinking in. "Believe what you want," I replied, "but you might want to check the details before making any big plans." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Collateral? Debts?" he finally muttered. "What does that even mean?" "It means your father's wealth was never just sitting idle," I explained. "He reinvested it into projects, used it to fund his dreams. The $600 million is locked up to pay off those commitments. There's no free money, John." No, that can't be right," he stammered. "There's supposed to be money left. I already spent my savings thinking I'd inherit it all." I sighed, almost feeling sorry for him. "You should have known better. Your father's work ethic wasn't about hoarding wealth. It was about creating opportunities and leaving a legacy." His silence spoke volumes. For the first time, I heard genuine fear in his voice. "What am I supposed to do now?" "That's not my problem," I said firmly. "You made your choices, John. Now you'll have to live with them." Over the next few weeks, I heard bits and pieces about John's struggles through mutual friends. He had returned to his old sales job, but his performance was lackluster. The confidence he once carried was gone, replaced by the weight of his own mistakes. Meanwhile, I was finding my own path. Moving into a smaller place, I discovered a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I focused on my career, diving into projects that reignited my passion for work. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control of my life. One evening, as I sorted through some old belongings, I came across a letter from my father-in-law. It was a simple note, written shortly before his passing. "Mary," it read, "thank you for everything you've done for our family. I trust you to make the right decisions when the time comes. You have my blessing." Tears welled up in my eyes as I read his words. Despite everything, He had believed in me, and that belief gave me the strength to move forward. John's downward spiral continued. The shock of losing the imagined $600 million had shattered him. He quit his job after a month, unable to cope with the demands. Without my support or the inheritance he'd counted on, he was floundering. I heard he had taken up part-time work, barely scraping by. His lavish lifestyle dreams had crumbled, replaced by the stark reality of survival. Friends and family began to distance themselves, tired of his self-pity and excuses. Meanwhile, I was thriving. The lessons from my father-in-law, hard work, integrity, and resilience, shaped every step I took. I enrolled in a leadership program at work, aiming for a promotion. It felt good to focus on myself, to build something meaningful. But John wasn't done yet. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" "Mary, please," he began, his voice raw with desperation. "Can we meet? I'll explain everything. I just need to see you." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small cafe, neutral ground where neither of us held the upper hand. John looked worse than I'd ever seen him, disheveled, gaunt, and defeated. "I made mistakes," he admitted, avoiding my gaze. "I thought I could handle everything, but I was wrong. I lost everything, Mary." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "What do you want from me?" "A second chance," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "I'll do better this time. I've learned my lesson." I laughed, not out of spite but disbelief. "John, you used me. You took my trust and broke it. There's no going back." "Please," he begged, tears brimming in his eyes. "I'm not asking for money or anything. Just help me start over." I paused, weighing his words. Could I really help him without jeopardizing my hard-won peace? "I can give you advice, John, but that's it," I said finally. "You need to rebuild yourself, not rely on others. Start small. Take responsibility for your actions and learn from them." He nodded, though I wasn't sure if he truly understood. As we parted ways, I felt a strange mix of pity and closure. He was no longer my problem. Weeks turned into months, and I heard little about John. I focused on my goals, climbing the ladder at work, and building a support network of friends who uplifted me. The life I was creating felt authentic and fulfilling. One day I received a letter in the mail. It was from John. Inside was a short note and a check for $1,000. "Thank you for believing I could change," it read. "I'm starting over, just like you said." I folded the note and placed it in a drawer. It was a small gesture, but it felt like the closing chapter of a story that had defined so much of my past. My story wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, my strength, my growth, and my future. And for the first time in years, I felt free.